That's better. I keep doing that. Sorry about that. Good evening. Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation live with me, your host, Owen James. Guys, we are live tonight on a, what was it, Wednesday? Yes, Wednesday night. Litigation. Hey, James, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. We are here tonight live. We are going to be talking through the statement the club made today as regards the possible pyrotechnics and other things that happened in the Fenerbahce game. Would you sell Hamza and Raskin if good money comes in the summer, says Airwolf. Straight in with a question there. We'll get to that question in a minute, Airwolf. But welcome along, guys. Welcome. We're going to have to do a Q&A tonight. Obviously, your chance to ask your questions, control the agenda tonight. Look, a few housekeeping bits and pieces. If you can smash the sub, if you've only just found the channel, that'd be phenomenal. We are 11 subs away from getting to our 7,200 mark on the channel, which would be fantastic to get a few more of you involved. Obviously, yeah, and please obviously remember you can become a member for as little as 99p. Right, let's go for it. Let's get straight into it tonight, guys. Right, so Airwolf would like to know this. He says, would you sell Hamza and Raskin if good money comes in the summer? Mate, look, I think, to be honest with you, by good money, if you are talking £40 million upwards for the pair, then I think you've got to consider selling. You've got to consider it. You know, the situation we are in, and even if we get, even with the new owners, and no doubt, you know, we've talked about the 49ers ploughing in more money, 25 million, but you know, any money over and above that we can raise to go into squad development's got to be a good thing. Now, I think if you face a situation, Airwolf, where you know you can raise, say, 40 million for selling those two, say 20 million for Hamza, 20 million for Raskin, then you've really got to look at it. You know, we're not in a position as a club anymore to turn down bids for players. You know, we're not the same team we were under Walter, under Dick Advocat, under Graham Souness. You know, we do need to sell. So I'll be honest with you, if we've got two bids, if we've got bids that come in excess of 20 million for Hamza and for Nicholas Raskin, then you've got to look at it. You've got to look at it. You know, we can't afford to turn it down. Good evening, Owen and Bears. I'm personally getting fed up with the direction of the club is heading in. Yes, the Union Bears are embarrassing, but the statement made is going to enrage a lot of fans. This is 30. Is that for the pair, Airwolf? Is that for the pair or each? Is that for the pair or each, mate? Right, let's have a little look. Yeah, so this is the statement. So this was for those of you who don't know, this was the statement made earlier by the club in reference to the fact that we are now in trouble with UEFA again over the banner. You know, this was, so what happened was the banner that was unveiled at the Fenerbahce game was something to do with keeping woke ideologies out of Europe or something like that, which was perceived to be a far right banner. Apparently there was also objects thrown, pyrotechnics used. All of this has landed us in deep hot water with UEFA again. The club have made a statement as regards this. And I think the bit that's really peed off a lot of the fans was the part of the statement that said this. It said, for the avoidance of doubt, if you do not believe in 2025 that absolutely everyone is welcome to follow Rangers, whether at Ibrox or away, then Rangers is not the club for you, and you should disassociate yourself with the club immediately. Well, I don't think the club are in any position to tell anyone who they can and can't support. I think that is a bit of a stupid statement, if I'm being honest. You know, I don't think anyone has any issue anymore with whoever supports the club, whether you are black, whether you are white, whether you are Asian, whether you are Chinese, whether you are Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Jewish, whatever you are. I don't think the club have any issue at all with, or the fans per se have any issue with that. As long as you support Rangers, I don't think, you know, there is any issue there. Trying to be careful here. I think the issue is where these ideologies, these minority groups are getting perhaps too much say or a favoritist position within a club or in terms of events at clubs because they come from a minority. I think there is a lot of people in this country, not just amongst the Rangers fan base, that are absolutely sick to death of this vocal minority that seem to be able to want to tell us, the population of this country and the law-abiding British population of this country, what to do, what we can and can't say. And I think a lot of the anger, from certain groups in the fans over, putting that banner up, and also over the ITFAR that they had at Ibrox the other day, is a symptom of what is going on at this moment in the country. I think I'm trying not to get too political because this is not a politics show. This is a football show, but I understand where Alex is coming from. What was it with the so-called Rangers sign? I think, people didn't like it. It was racist. We're getting taken over. We know not to need James. I think that the selling of 30 for the pair. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. 30 to 35 million. Yeah, decent. I was going for the ambitious 40 to 45 on that one, Airwolf. I still think there will be a need to sell players, William, James, sorry, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think that will go away. I think that not only does the European football aspect of the club attract the 49ers and Andrew Kavanagh, but I think also the transfer trading model attracts the Niners and Kavanagh. If you look at the San Francisco 49ers and their current position within the NFL and what they're doing over in America, before I came on tonight, I was watching the Gold Rush podcast with John Chapman, and the whole way the Niners are going over there at this moment in time is they are rapidly reducing their expenditure and rapidly reducing their contracts and rapidly reducing the number of highly paid players on their roster. They've cut between 11 and 13 players, or allowed up to 11 to 13 players to leave, including some, very highly paid, very highly rated players. They are kind of like Rangers trying to get younger and cheaper. So I think, there will always be a need to sell players to raise money. I don't think that this takeover will be the ultimate panacea that everyone thinks it's going to be, that we won't need to sell players, that it's going to be, money after money poured in. That's not the way that Jed York works. Jed York has made it ultimately clear over in America that he is not prepared to just keep throwing money into sports franchises or sports teams. He wants to see, his money well spent, and he wants to see a return on the money that he is spending. And certainly over in the States, the 49ers are going very much down the youth route, at this moment in time. Grant says, I'd be getting... something, echoing what it said. Congratulations to James, new member of the channel. Welcome, James. I don't know why your thing isn't there. You should come up now. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Airwolf says everyone's far right these days. They are, mate, aren't they? Yes, according to Keir Starmer, we're all far right. Anyone flinging things in the stadium needs a life ban. Look, I agree. Look, the part of the statement that I do agree with around the pyrotechnics and the throwing of objects. Look, we've been told time and time again by the SFA, by UEFA, and by the club that if we persist in things being thrown onto the pitch, or we persist in using pyrotechnics, there will be ramifications for the club going forward. And that may be that fans are banned from attending games, or that they get massive fines, or that we get kicked out of a competition is the ultimate, obviously, sanction. Now, I would urge every single person that goes to a game, you do not need to take flares into a game. You do not need to throw things onto the pitch, no matter how angry you get at players or opposition players. You need to resist that temptation, and remember that, look, we have, as a fan base, have just been condemning Celtic fans for throwing things at our players when they were celebrating that winning goal on Sunday and celebrating the winning of the game on Sunday. And yet we're coming up and being done for throwing things against Fenerbahce, which makes us a tiny bit hypocritical. Well, some of them us are a tiny bit hypocritical. As for the pyrotechnics at games, I don't know how many times I need to echo this, what the club are saying. It is dangerous. For some people, it is a health risk. It also carries a heavy danger. It could blind people. if you're taking pyrotechnics into a football stadium, if you are using flares in a football stadium, you are an idiot. I mean, I won't mince my words here. If you are taking those red flares in, holding them up or throwing them within a football stadium, you are an absolute moron. You really are. And you need to stop it, and stop it now. Gorgut says, the banner didn't say anything provocative or racist considering what they let Celtic do. It's ridiculous for the Rangers board to clap back. We're not a lefty club. Look, whatever you felt about the banner, now whether or not you agreed with it or disagreed with it, the one thing I am going to say is this. I believe, and I wholeheartedly believe, in freedom of speech. I believe in freedom of speech. That is one of the most guiding things that I will die on the hilt of, that you are entitled to freedom of speech. Now, the banner for me was not racist. It was not Islamophobic. It was not homophobic. It was mainly stating a point about how people feel at this present moment in time, that those within minority groups within this country are having far too much of a say in how things are run and how things are done, not only at Rangers Football Club, but in the world in general. And I think amongst the vast proportion of the silent majority of this country, and I mean Scotland, England, Wales, and Ireland, there is a growing disquiet amongst people that these groups are having too much of a say, and it is not right and it is not fair. I believe wholeheartedly in inclusion. I believe that everyone has the right to their own beliefs, to their own values. And if you want to be gay, fine. If you want to be trans, fine. If you want to be Muslim, fine. If you want to be Sikh, Hindu, Catholic, Protestant, fine. But you don't shove it down someone else's throat. You don't go out there and try and push your philosophy and your ideology in people's faces. You get on with your everyday life. You don't need to have flags or protests or banners or shout things at people. You just need to get on with it. They've invited Muslims to celebrate Ramadan, but want to turn their back on traditional Protestant support, flying gay pride flags. But we've not to have an opinion. And I think that's what I'm saying, Alex. I think that the club and those within power in England and Scotland need to realise that everyone is entitled to have their say and have their opinion. And I think a lot of the time, and like I said, I'm trying not to be political here, you feel that those within the majority, the ethnic and the religious majority within these countries, are not getting the say or an equal say with those in the minority, and it's not right. It's not right. Evening, Daffy. How you doing, buddy? Hello, says Gunnar. Hello. Gorgut says, I'm an immigrant to this country of South American descent. I say this country is falling too woke for an ideology. Funny story. I used to be a Celtic supporter until I got kicked out of the club for being Jewish. There we go. I won't get banned off here for saying someone to spend their money on their grandkids rather than super chat on a podcast. Fair enough. If it's going to get the club fined and stop supporters from going to matches, then they shouldn't be displaying banners or using pyrotechnics. I agree with pyrotechnics, and I think there's a place for banners, there's a place for protests, there's a place for that, and perhaps within the ground obviously is not the place to do it. And the thing I would say, Grant, and whilst I support fully freedom of speech, I would say that what did that banner have to do with that game and supporting Rangers? I would say that if you're going to unveil banners within Ibrox, that they need to be banners that are in reference to the football. One of my really strong opinions is that we keep politics out of sport. We don't want sport washing. We don't want politics being used in sport. We don't want sport used for political ends. We don't want sport used to promote political ideologies. We want sport to be what it is, an entertainment business that we can all go, support our team, hopefully enjoy supporting our team, hopefully get involved in supporting our team, support our team with whoever is around us, whether they be Indian, Afro-Caribbean, English, Jewish, whoever they are. They're all here at Ibrox. They're all here for the same reason, and that's to support Rangers Football Club. And that's it. So the one thing I would say about that banner is, what did it have to do with football? And should it have been at a football match? There we go. Airwolf says, Will the fans accept the 49ers taking money out? Look, I think we've all got to accept taking money out, because at the end of the day, Airwolf, it's their club. If they own 51% of the club, then it is their club, and any profit or dividends that are taken out of the club, it's the same with private business and private equity business, that if you invest in something, you want a return for it. You don't just pour good money after bad. They will take money out, but they will take money out the same way that they take money out of the 49ers in the NFL, the way they take money out of Leeds United, the way that FSG take money out of Liverpool, the way that Stan Kroenke takes money out of Arsenal, the way that the Saudis take money out of Newcastle, the way that the Emirates guys take money out of Manchester City. Where there is a profit and where there is a dividend paid, they will take money out, and they have every right to take that money out. If they're investing 20, 30 million into the business, and the business is making a profit and taking out, say, 60 million, they have a right to take some of that money back. It's their money at the end of the day. There we go. Airwolf says UEFA have to be seen to be strong here. They do, and that's the problem, isn't it? I think UEFA are trying to flex their muscles. I agree, no excuse for throwing things or pyros, but freedom of speech should be allowed, says Alex. Agreed. Freedom of speech is what it's all about. Nothing will happen until someone is killed. Agreed. In terms of the pyros, throwing of objects needs to stop, and the pyros, but freedom of speech never. I agree. Yeah, you don't throw things at a football match. I mean, if you're throwing metal objects from a height, those objects pick up a speed, and if they hit somebody in the head, in the face, they could severely hurt them. If they hit them in the eye, they could blind them, and then you're in a whole world of trouble. You are then guilty of more than just throwing something. You are guilty of grievous bodily harm. You are guilty of serious assault, and you could go to prison. Now, do you really think that angry minute that you have at a football game because one of the opposition players has pissed you off is worth spending 6-7 years in jail for? Is it? Realistically, balance it up. Curry says it's breathing in flare smoke. It's carcinogenic. It is, absolutely. They did drove Britain out of that. Hope, not hate in the stadium. Agree. Fuck religion. I only care if we win. And that's the thing. I think we've got to get beyond this. Yes, we are Protestants and they are Catholic. And, that's it. But there are Catholic Rangers fans now. There are Protestant Celtic fans. There are Muslim Rangers fans. There are Sikh Rangers fans. There are Hindu Rangers fans. There are Jewish Rangers fans. At the end of the day, it shouldn't matter what religion you are as long as you support the club. Personally speaking, both my daughters are Catholic. Both my daughters were baptized Catholic because my ex-wife is Catholic. My oldest daughter attends a Catholic school. I don't hate Catholics. Due to fan obsession with Rangers men, could the 49ers end up with moaning fans if they don't appoint Ferguson? As long as whoever they appoint is successful, Airwolf, I don't think there'll be an issue. If they appoint somebody and that appointment goes tits up, as well as I do, fans will turn and will say, at the end of the day, they will say, oh, we should have appointed Barry. We should have appointed Barry. That's what will happen. You know that. I know that. We all know that. So we've just got to hope that whoever is appointed can be successful and can hit the ground running and be successful straight away. Look, realistically speaking, in terms of Barry Ferguson becoming manager of Rangers, I think that we cannot make a judgment based on one Old Firm and one European tie against Fenerbahce. You have to sit down at the end of the season and evaluate his job, the job he's done over the whole of his work. You also have to take into account what he has done previously. You have to take into account the fact that when you come in as a new manager, you get a new manager lift. Even Philippe Clement had that, hence why we went to the top of the league and then it all fell apart. Even Clement had that new manager bump, didn't he? He came in, he won the game against Hibs, his first game. We then went on that unbeaten run. We then obviously went top of the league. We looked like we're going to win the league at one point, and then it all fell apart. So realistically, Airwolf, I think in terms of Ferguson being appointed, we need to look at the whole body of work. And I think there's a lot of fans getting carried away with Barry's won the derby. Barry beat Jose. He's got to be the manager. He must be the manager. We could go on and lose every game between now and the end of the season. Should he still then be the manager because he's beaten Celtic and he's beat Jose? I'd say not. It's got to be judged at the end of the season. And you've also then got to sit down, and if the 49ers have their own people, which I'm sure they will, have a short list of candidates, how does he compare with those candidates? Who is the best person for the job? Barry Ferguson and his team, Rafa Benitez and his team, Kevin Muscat and his team, Steven Gerrard and his team. Who are the best people to come in and run the football club? And that, for me, is the evaluation they've got to make at the end of the day. Alex says, I don't think Barry will get the job. I said, I don't think Airwolf will get the job. Of course he won't. Football stadiums isn't the place for it. Go march or protest or support whoever you want. Keep football to football, says Grant. Agreed. Ross Ferguson says, anything but a Celtic supporter. Absolutely. We don't want those in the ground. Some Septic fans go in pods and savage Rangers for banners that are not offensive but have nothing but praise for the shit they put up. Hypocritical. I agree with that 100%. A lot of the stuff that they put up is disgusting and absolutely pathetic. Cameron Syme says, each to their own, but a club should never be taking sides on benign issues like banners, expressing views. Sure, it may not be football related, but it's woke flags, Ramadan football related. No, I'd agree. And what I'd say is that we need to, as a club, stay away from those things. Keep it as football. We don't need to be flying pride flags. We don't need to be. This is what I said, Cameron. I said that I fully support someone's right to be homosexual or to be trans or to be Catholic or to be Protestant or to be Sikh or to be Hindu or to be a Muslim or to, whatever. As long as what they believe is within the law of the land, I fully support their right to do that. However, what I don't support is their desire to then shove that down people's throats. I don't believe that you need a flag or you need a banner or you need to shout slogans to support your sexuality or your religious beliefs. Personally, as a white European male who is heterosexual, who is a Protestant, you don't get me going around flying a flag for white Protestant males because there isn't one, because we don't need one, because we haven't got to shout in people's faces about it. So as a club, I don't believe we should be getting involved in this because it is not to do with football. If it's to do with football, fine. But if it's not to do with... So, for example, the show races and the red card campaign, fully support the flying of flags, banners, whatever, with that. But everything else that is not football related or is not supporting the game or supporting the club, you do not need banners for it, flags for it, slogans for it within the ground. You just need stuff that supports Rangers Football Club. At the end of the day, that's what you need for me. As long as the new manager plays exciting attacking football and getting results on the pitch, I agree, Daffy. That is the key thing that we all want. And yeah, they can only take money out if the club's successful. Correct. Janet says, no Rangers fan will condone any type of violence, be it throwing objects or pyros, but we won't be dictated to by a club whose supporters promote terrorism, full stop. Yeah, with reference to Celtic. It makes me sad that so many of their fans shit on Great Britain, this country that took me and my family in, and openly are hostile to the Union Jack. Disgusting. I love the UK and Rangers. And this is the thing I don't get. For a group of people who probably a large proportion of them get some sort of benefit from the UK government, who enjoy the freedom of speech, the freedom of association, the freedom to move around this country because of the UK and its values, to therefore talk down about them, I think is an absolute disgrace. And I think they should be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely. It has certainly started more wars than I think. Whilst I'm Jewish, half my family is Catholic, and we will support the famous Glasgow Rangers. It's about loving your country, not religion to me. Where do you see Oscar Cortez going forward, Airwolf? On the treatment table? Yeah, that's what Grant says, on the treatment table. Look, Oscar Cortez is a very, very troubling individual. He is going to cost us £4.5 million to buy. That is a deal we can't get out of. We are stuck with Oscar Cortez. We are stuck with paying £4.5 million. There is nothing within the contract apparently that enables us to get out of it. It is just the situation that we have to buy him. In terms of where I see him going forward, when he is fit, we have to try and get the best out of him. We have to try and use him in the best way we can, which is when he... The one thing I will say, Wolf, is when I've seen him play, which is very rarely. The Hearts game, for example, he's looked a very good footballer. He looks a very talented footballer. However, if you go off the record of someone like Kamar Roof, who obviously missed a lot of time, and I think we made a lot of mistakes around Kamar, I think the medical staff have to do their very best to get to the bottom of whatever the issue is that is causing these reoccurring injuries within Oscar Cortez. And we've got to hope that the medical staff can get to the bottom of it, can solve it, and can turn him into the player that we all hope he's going to be, that turns out for Rangers week in, week out, plays well for Rangers week in, week out, and displays some of those skills and some of that talent he's quite obviously got. However, there becomes a time, I believe, that and I've hopefully, and this is kind of for me from the Ryan Jack days, when Jack, who was a very good footballer but was out injured a lot, Kamar Roof, that you've got to look at a player and sometimes you have to cut your losses with him. Either try and sell them to somebody, or you cancel their contracts. You pay their contracts up, because you can't continue to pay for somebody who is not going to play for your football club, who is going to incur you a cost in the medical department, who is never going to be available for you. So, you've got to look at perhaps ways of dealing with that issue if it persists. But the hope has to be that we get him fit and we keep him fit. Hope that answers the question. Golgot's exactly. It's about the team you choose to support, not the religion you were born into. Everybody has the right to choose who they want to follow. And please know, Rafa as manager says, Dado, why has the club never been run right? Am I going back to the Murray days? What a question, Airwolf. What a question. Too many people following their own personal agendas. Could be the reason for that. Too many people who believe in their own ability to too great an extent. Too many men who are not in it for the right reasons. Too many people who are doing it just because they like the fact that they are involved with Rangers, that they get to wear the Rangers club jacket, the Rangers tie, be in the director's box. And I suppose with the likes of David Murray and others, people who their heart was in the right place and they kind of got drunk on success and then threw too much money after it. Bad decision after bad decision, wrong people making wrong decisions. I suppose the hope has to be that the people we are bringing in now, the people who are taking over the football club, Parag Marathe and Andrew Kavanagh, certainly if you look at Parag Marathe and you look at his track record at running football clubs and running sports franchises, he's the vice president of football operations for the San Francisco 49ers. His track record at decision-making in terms of bringing in sponsorship, bringing in players, contracts, etc., scouting are all very, very good. So you have to hope that this is a line in the sand that we can move forward from. But I think in terms of where we've gone wrong in the past, the present board are too obsessed with just being Rangers directors and just having the association of the club. They are not in it they're two 1970s for me. I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Damned United. The guy, Sam Longson, in that, the guy who plays him, obviously, the way that he behaves in that, I think he's very apt of how our board members believe. You should shut up and do as we say. We're the bosses. We're in charge. And it's them losing sight. I think when people get into positions of power, Airwolf, they lose sight of why they're doing this. They lose sight of what is important. And what is important are the fans in the stands. That's what's important. The fans in the stands are what is important, and running the club for the fans, not running the clubs for themselves. And I think some of it is they tend to get into the thing of running it for themselves. Sure, each their own. When it gets brought up in tokenism, I agree. It's the shoving of it down our throats which stirs more division. Totally agree. When was the last time that the club was run right? David Holmes, Airwolf. Possibly that was the last time. Dado, who would you fancy as the new manager? Any thoughts? Dado, I had a question for Dado there. And spending money we don't have. Yeah, isn't it? I think these are so high. There is a demand within our fan base for success, which is what we all know it's there. We all want to be successful. We all want the club to win trophies again. We all want the club to dominate. You therefore get people chasing the unicorn, don't you? Paying money that they haven't got, trying to buy that unicorn that doesn't exist. To some extent. Honestly, I'd give Ferguson a 1-year rolling contract, see how it goes. That's only if he wins the Europa League. There we go. Airwolf, yes, that's true. People need to remember EBTs were legal. We used them. It was retrospective law changes to prosecute us. The Stuttgart manager for Dado. Cortez playing days are over, says Matt Gunner. They could, but I don't know. He is a player. I mean, didn't he come back and play the other day for the under-21s? We haven't seen him since then. Maybe he's injured again. Derby, there we go. Is that where he is now? Grant, yes, Sebastian Herner, that's the guy's name at Stuttgart. That's who Dado wants. Decent name. With Cortez, we are going to have to pay over the odds and have to try and sell him. If it doesn't work out for pennies, makes no sense going through these deals. And sometimes that you have to do that. You have to kind of try and pay off your debt, don't you? You have to try and pay it off however you can. That's cool. Brian Clough, greatest manager. Who would I like to see manage Rangers? That's a good question, Ross. Look, are we talking realistic? Are we talking realistic or are we talking unrealistic? I mean, look, if we're talking anybody, I would want Jurgen Klopp as the manager because the guy is absolute fucking box office. The guy is box office to watch. And the football he plays is fast, it's attacking, it's aggressive. The Gegenpress, as it's known, you've got players will absolutely die on the pitch for their manager. So for me, unrealistic person, Jurgen Klopp. Realistic person, look, I think it's difficult to say realistic because, as I said on a number of pods and videos now, I don't think the new manager will come from the list that we've got in our minds. I think it could well come from outside of that. If we're dealing with the list we have in our minds, for me, Kevin Muscat would be a good appointment. I think his football would work in Scotland. It's fast, it's quick, it's aggressive, it's attacking. He knows the Asian market. He's ex-Rangers. There's a number of things I think that stands Muscat apart from the others. I just think he would work in Scotland. Airwolf says, do you think Dio has grown under Barry? Yeah, I do. I think Barry, yes, I think he's developed in terms of his playing ability, but I also think that Barry's actually using him correctly. I think Barry is using him in a position that more suits his playing style. So yes, I do believe that he has grown, and I believe he is becoming a better player under Barry. I think Barry is getting the best out of him. I think he's allowing him freedom to play. He's allowing him to get into places to affect the game more. He's allowing him into those more advanced areas where he can cause more trouble. So yeah, for me, I agree. He has grown. He has grown. Cool. A few points going through here. If Barry doesn't, he does show more urgency. He does, Janet, definitely. If Barry doesn't lose an SPFL game between now and the end of the season, I'd give him another year, says Grant Willis. Realistic, sorry for the spelling. There we go. Yeah, so Kevin Muscat, realistic. Good evening. I would like to see Barry Ferguson stay as permanent manager. Stephen White, I think there's a lot of people that are saying that would like to see him stay, would like to see him given the opportunity to manage the club on a permanent basis. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people saying that now. But like I said, I think that we've got to base our judgment on the whole year, on the whole of his time at Rangers, not just on these last two games. And that's the danger. You get carried away on the back of beating Celtic at Parkhead. You're always going to get that wave of emotion that says, give him the job, give him the job, give him the job. Would you take Benitez? I would. Brenda would shit. He's never had a challenge. I wouldn't take Benitez personally. I don't like Rafa Benitez as a manager. I don't rate Rafa Benitez as a manager. There's just something about him I don't like. I can't put my finger on it, but no, I wouldn't take him. What I think of the club statement today, mixed, mate. I think what they said about pyros and throwing stuff is absolutely spot on. Don't bring pyros into the ground. Don't throw things is spot on. But as I was saying earlier, where they got it wrong was saying that people who don't like the flying of pride flags, who don't like the Muslim thing, who don't like the ban, don't like the woke ideologies, and say that should disassociate themselves with the club. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. They cannot tell people what they can and cannot think. They cannot tell people what to and what not to believe. We live in a free, well, for now, although I'm sure this Labour government don't want us to, we live in a free country. We live in a country with freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of movement, freedom of expression. And people have the right to say those things. And if they don't like pride flags over Ibrox, if they don't like Muslim festivals taking place in Ibrox, if they don't like woke ideologies, then they have every right to say that. And to say that if you believe that, you shouldn't be a Rangers fan, well, I'm sorry, that's wrong. And the club can't say that. And I think the club are out of order saying that as well. Question: Neil Lennon worked out when he got a Celtic job. Why can't Barry? Good point. Good point. I don't, like I said, Airwolf, I'm not against Barry Ferguson getting the job on a permanent basis. What I'm saying is, you have to judge it at the end of the season once you've got the full body of work in. How has he done in the Europa League? How has he done domestically? How has he done in the second Old Firm game? Then you take the judgment on that. Plays 4-4-2. That German manager would fit right in British football. Airwolf, glad Clement is gone. He was soft on these players, while Ferguson is the opposite. He takes no prisoners. Yes, absolutely. There's two things that I picked up from what Dujon Sterling said during the week. One is that the training is much more intense, apparently, under Ferguson. There is a higher level of expectation, a higher level of intensity in the training at Auchenhowie on a daily basis, which I think works well for these players. And they then bring that higher intensity into games. And I think there's a general knowledge within the fan base, within the player base, that knows that Barry will not accept shit performances. He will not accept people not trying. He will not accept people not giving a shit. He will not accept people not caring. And if you do that, he will run you through. And he's done that. He's done that. You can see that. I think the players, especially midfielders, respect Barry, knowing he's been there and done that. That is part of it. This is a guy who's, outplayed Bayern Munich, a guy who's won all firms, won leagues, been captain of Rangers. So, yeah, I agree. I'm happy to wait until the end of the season and see what happens. We have after the takeover. It happens if it happens. I think it will happen. It will happen. Need a manager that's hungry. No has-beens, please. Agreed with that one. We don't want someone's cast-offs. Absolutely not. Yeah, a youngish manager to grow with the team. That's a good shout. The banner wasn't racist. Simple as that. I'd prefer politics was left out of football personally, but it was not racist. Bluebell, spot on. First fact is, yes, it was not racist because it did not decry any group in particular. It was not Islamophobic. It was not anti-black, anti-Asian, anti-Chinese, anti-Jewish. It was not anti-Muslim. It was not anti-anything like that. It was merely a statement. Yes, it was a political statement, and I agree with you that politics should be kept out of football. You don't want a manager who's fixated on stats and possession. You want a manager who can mix it up. Exactly. And I think the problem is a lot of the modern managers are obsessed with stats, with sports science, as we saw under Clement, and they allow that to run too much of the game. Barry Ferguson, I think, is very much like Walter Smith. He's old school. He judges players by what he sees on the training park, what he sees on the match day park, what he sees by talking to the players, watching the players, understanding the players. Barry, I think, is old school. I don't think he listens to sports science. I mean, you heard his comments before the Celtic game when he was asked about tiredness. He said, look, they're professional footballers. They're here to play football. They're here to get on with it. And if you can't get up for games like this, you shouldn't be a professional footballer. Spot on. Whereas Clement would have said something along the lines of, yes, we have to judge it based on sports science. Was a sports scientist telling me who can play 90 minutes, who can play 45? It would have been a load of bullshit. You know that. We could buy Japanese player or Chinese internationals, get the money back on shirt sales. That's if Muscat comes in, I guess. Is our first choice 11 players as bad as it's made out? No. Airwolf, I've said this all year. Mate. This squad is not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. There are some good footballers in this squad. And I think what made this squad look bad and what made these players look bad was the passive, non-aggressive approach of Philippe Clement. The failure to understand what Scottish football was, how the game should be played, the failure to understand Rangers as a club, the lack of a shape, the lack of tactics. The one thing... whatever you think of Barry Ferguson as a manager, what I've seen as a fan watching the games is I now watch Rangers and I see a team that knows what it's doing, that knows what's expected of it, that knows how its manager wants it to play, the shape it wants it to play, and the tactics it wants it to use. This team, when it's put out on a match day, knows exactly what the manager wants and how he wants it to play. You could never say that under Philippe Clement. You could never watch a Philippe Clement team and go, yeah, they know what they want. I didn't have a clue what Clement was trying to do or how he was trying to play. Yes, it worked in Europe, whatever he was doing. It didn't work in Scotland. Whereas Ferguson, it works because these players are so clear. This is what I do. This is how I play. If I'm in this situation, I do this. If I'm in this situation, I do this. And if I do this and I mess up, I've got X or Y has got my back. So, yeah, going back to Airwolf's question, I don't believe this squad is as bad as people make it out to be. I think there are a lot of good players in this squad. As I've said, go back and watch the videos, even when we were playing badly. Go back and watch some of the TikToks that I did as well at the time. John Suter, Mo Diamande, Nicholas Raskin, Vaslav Cherny, Danilo, Higaman, Ridvan. There are some good players at this club, and I think they were let down by bad tactics, bad organisation, and bad management. And you know, and as I said a number of times when people said, "Oh, Guardiola couldn't even get a tune out of this lot," I said, "Yes, he could," because a good coach can organise a team and get something out of a team. A good coach can always get something out of 11 players. Clement clearly was not a good coach. The club threw the orange order out of Ibrox. It used to be allowed to hold the annual church parade in the stadium, but Ramadan is okay. I agree that is out of order, Alex. It's the club forgetting its origins, its history. Funny how training is more intense but less injuries now. Train hard, play hard. Exactly. Not one ex-players has a good word for Rafa. True. I like he's seen Nsiala was struggling, took him out, brought him back in. High pressure of the game to boost his confidence back up. Yeah, he did a very good job. Yeah, instead of freezing him out, absolutely, he did a very, very good job. Definitely, 100% agree with you on that one. On that one, mate. Optimus Prime, congratulations! You've been a member for 14 months. Congratulations there. Be interesting to see if he goes with Nsiala against Bilbao with Soapy out. I think he will, Bluebells. I think he'll go with the back three of Sterling, Proper, and Nsiala, because that's what we are. No, he might go Sterling, Nsiala, Balogun. I think. Wayne Roberts says, well said, Alex, just spot on. I remember those days when we walked into Ibrox, where they were the days. Possession football means too many passes. I agree. And look, you can overplay. You know, you look at some of the games that Man City lose, that Barcelona lose, when they've got 70, 80% possession, but they haven't actually done anything with the ball. And, you know, people have said this. A number of people have said this. You can have all the ball in the world, but if you don't put the ball in the back of the net, it don't bloody matter. Happy birthday for last Friday, mate. I've been saying all season, the squad isn't bad. It's the tactics. Exactly. New rule in football, you can't pass back to the keeper. Some teams get 70% of their possession in the game doing that. Very true. Hope Rangers are going to take a stand on the way our players were subjected to abuse. Cherny and the objects getting thrown at our players. I get it objectively. Pyros. Yeah, absolutely. I do hope that they take the same outrage over the way that our players were treated over at Celtic Park as they've done over this statement today. How much transfer money do you think we've wasted since Gerrard? An absolute fuckload, mate. If you go back over our last few windows, Airwolf, I think we've wasted an awful lot of money on players. We really have. We've wasted an awful lot of money on players. There's a lot of signings that have been bad signings, but it's not just the signings and the money we've spent on transfer fees. It's also the signing on fees, the wages. I can't tell you an exact number, but if you look at some of the signings we've made over that time that have proved to be an absolute disaster and have not worked out, you know, Sam Lammers, Aaron Ramsey, who else can I go through a list? You know, there's a number of players you look at that have just not worked out. Jose Cifuentes, you know, was meant to be this great, brilliant box-to-box player who would change everything. Didn't happen. So I would say we've wasted a lot of money, mate, on players. We haven't spent a lot, but yeah, you've carried 20 million plus. Like I said, I would have to look at transfer. I'd have to go through and judge each player and have a little look. Yeah, please click the like, obviously. John Hasbullah Beck says the squad that got into the final under Gio had a transfer value of 130 million. More than half that squad has left for free. Yeah, that is really bad management by the club, isn't it? It really is bad management by the club. You know, we've allowed players that were worth 20, 25 million pounds to leave. You know, Morelos, you probably could have got 20 million from it, the high of his value. Ryan Kent, similar. You know, Kamara, 15 to 20 million. There's a lot of players in that team that would have been worth an absolute fortune, but we let them go. What else have we got? Ross Ferguson says, do you think we'll keep Cherny in the summer? Yes, I think it's more likely now that he will stay because of the fact we have money to spend, because of the fact we have owners that do have money. So I do believe we will get. We have a chance to sign Tierney that we didn't have to sign Seamer last summer. Yeah, he did say he wanted to stay. He did say he wanted to stay. William Wallace, isn't he dead? Um, Freedom! You may die, but you'll never saying once as he sacked York. There you go. Don't expect me to like William Wallace, mate. Okay, look, that's right. Joey Barton was a waste of money. Joey, mate, I'll be honest with you, Ross. Joey Barton's not just a waste of money. Joey Barton's a waste of space, a waste of air, a waste of skin and bones, and a waste of existence. Just what Joey Barton is. He's a complete waste. He's a waste of time. Rangers have always had a solid squad. What we've not had is the confidence and style of play or a settled team. Yeah, I think now we've got a settled style of play. We've got a team that, and the one thing that I don't know about you guys, but I think that we have a team now that have more confidence, more aggression, and I think Barry's given them that. I really do. I look. Don't get me wrong. No matter what happens, whether he gets the job or doesn't get the job, I love Barry. Always will. Will Tav lead the team out next season? That is the $90 million question, mate. I hope not, but I think he will. I think Tav will still be here next season. I think Tav will get a new 2-year deal, if I'm being honest. I think Tav will sign a new 2-year deal at the end of the season. That's just my thoughts. A 2-year extension to his deal. He's out of contract in 2026. I think he'll get a contract till 2028. And I think he'll retire as a Rangers player. That's just my personal opinion. I might be wrong. Add the Duff signings on top. You can be sure we've pushed away 70 million in the last. We've wasted a lot of money, haven't we, in the last few years? We certainly have wasted an awful lot of money. But boys and girls, we certainly have. Look, you know, it's nice though that we've got a situation where, as a club, we seem to be moving forward. I don't know about you, but I feel a lot more positive about the club at the moment. That we've got a club that are finally moving in the right direction, a club that are finally doing the right things, a club that have got a style, a club that have got a vision, a club that have got a way of expressing themselves now. And we've got a manager we can believe in, a manager who loves the club. And I think it's all helping. And there is a feel-good factor around Ibrox at this moment in time. You know, whether in 2-3 weeks we'll all feel the same if we get knocked out of the Europa League, lose a couple of SPFL games, you know, we all might be back down in the doldrums again and demanding Barry gets sacked there and then. You never know. That's what it is to support Rangers, isn't it? That's what it is to support Rangers. If Tav stays, it should be without the captaincy, says Stephen McCullough. I agree, but I don't think it will be. I don't think that he will be stripped of the captaincy. I think particularly if Barry Ferguson stays, he won't be stripped of the captaincy. Exactly, and you can see the confidence slowly draining out. I agree. Tav's missus loves the Glasgow. Glasgow, agree, but he's not leaving. Not sure about the extension, though. I think he will get the extension. Raskin for captain. Yeah, I'd love Raskin to be the captain. I think he was a brilliant captain. I think he'll have to wait. I don't think he ever will be Rangers captain. I think he could be on a temporary basis if Tav's not playing. But I don't think he will be captain. I think Tav will still be captain next season. And I think Raskin will leave before Tav retires because Raskin is a very saleable asset, as Airwolf's question suggested at the start of the podcast. I think there is an element there where he is worth 25 million pounds, and some EPL club will come in and bid that much for him. I think Tav will get another year, but Raskin for captain. I agree, but I can't see anyone taking the captaincy off Tav, Janet. I just genuinely can't. You know, it would take a very brave manager to do that. I don't think if Barry stays as manager, there is any chance of that happening. I think if someone else comes in, a Muscat, a Knutson, a McInnes, there's a chance of that happening. But I think if Barry stays, there's no chance of it happening. Zero chance. And I think he'll get a new deal. I genuinely do. Right, guys, that is it for this evening. I've got to head off now as I've got to go pick my daughter up from Birmingham. Thank you very much for watching this evening. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Barry loves Tav. Always defend him on the radio, even when he was absolutely shocking. He did. And that's the thing, mate. That's the point I'm making. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's podcast where you've controlled the agenda. Thank you very much for watching. I would have liked to have talked for longer tonight, but like I said, I've got to get my daughter from Birmingham. Thank you for watching. Grant says if we don't keep Raskin, Dio and Hamza, then we'll never get the title back. I agree. I would hope that we could keep them for at least another season. Tav can always hand it over. Cheers, Owen Night Bears. Yeah, absolutely. He could do, couldn't he? He could be the bigger man, but I don't think he will be. That's not his way of doing things. Thank you for watching, guys. Actually, on the way out, if you could do me a couple of favors, obviously like, comment, and share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you for watching. Please remember, never forget, we are the people.